the final report of the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission, CKRC, which mirror Chapter 16 of our Constitution. I've reproduced part of the reports of CKRC that mirror Chapter 16 of our Constitution. Following the recommendations of CKRC and true to word, Chapter 16 of the 2010 Constitution is dedicated to amendment of the Constitution. In my view, the clear text and language of Chapter 16 is that there are explicit provisions in the 2010 Constitution providing for amendment, and therefore there is no reason to look outside the Constitution and import the basic structure doctrine on the basis that the Constitution has the unspoken language and or implicit provisions. And it has now been slightly more than 10 years since the Constitution was promulgated, and to the credit of the drafters of the Constitution, the 21 attempts to amend the Constitution, 19 were through a parliamentary initiative, whilst 2 were through a popular initiative, have all fallen by the wayside. These 21 attempts are tabulated in the written submissions of Mr. Ogeto, the Solicitor General appearing for the Honorable Attorney General. I have also reproduced those 21 attempts in part of this, my judgment. It is also true that the framers of our Constitution balance between flexibility and rigidity. To this end, CKRC had recommended, and I quote, that there is need to protect the Constitution against indiscriminate amendments. If the amendment procedure is too simple, it reduces public confidence in the Constitution. The converse, however, is also true. If the amendment procedure is too rigid, it may encourage revolutionary measures to bring about change instead of using the acceptable constitutional means. Thus, a balance must be struck between these two extremes. End of quotes. Accordingly, a balance had to be struck to avert violent revolutions against abusive amendments. In an article, The Politics of Constitutional Change in Kenya Since Independence, 1963 to 1969, Professor Okoth Ogendo underscores the fate of post-independence constitutions. He writes, "Constitutional systems in Anglophone Africa have not had a happy history, especially during the last decade. Almost without exception, the independence documents have either ended up in military dustbins or have undergone change so profound and rapid as to alter their value, content, and significance beyond recognizance." End of quote. I hear the good professor saying the Independence Constitution was so badly dismembered, and that if they did not suffer the fate of dismemberment, it was more likely that the Constitution would find their way into dustbins following military coups. The writings of Professor Okoth Ogendo echo the profound words of John F. Kennedy in 1962 when he stated, and I quote, "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable." End of quote. It is no secret that the framers of our 2010 Constitution struck a balance between stability and instability by providing for amendments in Chapter 16 of the 2010 Constitution, and this being the supreme law of the land, it was desirable to give it a more stable character and free it from hyper-amendments. This is important as no society is static, and what is good for one generation may not necessarily be good for the next. In an article entitled "No Generation Has the Right to Impose Its Own Values and Political Principles on a Later Generation" by Professor